I'm a 26-years-old female. I've always known I didn't want kids. From a young age, even when adults asked me how many children I wanted, my answer was always none. I didn't even know what child-free meant, but I always was. As I got older, I realized what it was. I just didn't feel that unconditional love that's supposed to come with having children. Could I love a child? What if I can't be a mother because I don't know what that kind of love feels like? That's how I've spent my whole life. Then I met my fiancé 2 years ago. He was my first everything, and I finally experienced romantic love. But when it came to kids, I still knew I couldn't do it. From the beginning, I told him that having kids was off the table. He said he was fine with that because he never really liked kids, so it wasn't a problem for him. 5 months ago, he proposed, and I said yes. We moved in together, and everything was perfect. We were planning our wedding slowly, no rush. That was until his sister had a baby 2 months ago. My fiancé instantly fell in love with his nephew and was there every step of the way. He bathed him, changed him, and napped with him. It seemed normal, so I didn't mind. 3 weeks ago, we went to his sister's house for lunch. My fiancé was mowing her lawn when she asked me to watch the baby for a couple of minutes. I tried to refuse, but she looked so tired that I agreed. I thought she would just put him in his stroller or something, but she placed him into my arms and went upstairs. I panicked. I had never held such a small baby before, and I was terrified I might drop him. 5 minutes in, he started crying. At first it was fine, but then he started screaming at the top of his lungs. How can such a tiny baby be so loud? I was almost in tears myself. I stood up as gently as I could and went outside where my fiancé was. I yelled at him to come grab the baby from me. He came over, took a picture of me holding the baby, and instead of taking him from me, he started giving me tips on how to calm the baby down. He pushed the baby closer to my chest and said, "He really suits you." I was on the verge of a panic attack, my hands trembling. I was even more scared of dropping him. I yelled that if he didn't grab the baby, I'd put him on the floor. He got angry, called me a name, and grabbed the baby. I couldn't handle it anymore, so I took an Uber home. He came home around midnight, showered, and went to sleep on the couch. The next morning, he was already gone when I woke up, and he didn't come home until very late. I told him we needed to talk, but he just said, "Tomorrow," and went back to the couch. The next day, when I came home from work, he was waiting for me. We sat down, and he apologized for how he reacted, saying he didn't know what got into him. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. "Do you want to have kids now?" "I don't know, I just love him so much, you know?" "Well, that's normal, isn't it?" "I guess. But do you really feel that way against having kids? You don't even have to get pregnant or give birth. We can adopt." I explained how scary pregnancy and childbirth were for me, especially because of how hard it was for my mum. She almost died giving birth to me due to complications and had to have an emergency hysterectomy. "That's not the only reason, and you know that," I told him. "You know how I feel about not knowing if I could love a child unconditionally." "I know, but you learned to love me, right? You can love a child too. Listen, we don't have to agree on this now. We can get married first and then revisit it. Please don't shut it down immediately." Then he started to cry and hugged me, so I dropped it. But deep down, I knew I couldn't be a mum. I know myself, and honestly, I felt betrayed by him. After that, he started doing some strange things. He changed his phone wallpaper to a picture of me holding the baby. He started calling me Mama. He wanted to start having unprotected sex, and he even began touching my belly when he thought I was asleep. I have fertility issues that I've never treated because what was the point? My period is irregular, but mostly pain-free, so I never bothered to do anything about it. But when he suggested I go to the doctor to see what's going on with that, I panicked. It felt like he was trying to get me pregnant, and abortion is still illegal in the country we're living in. So I left. I told him my mum fell in the shower and broke her leg, a lie, and I wanted to stay with her for a couple of days. He said that was fine, and I waited for him to go to work. Then I grabbed important documents, some clothes, sentimental things, my dog, and I left. He hasn't realized that I'm never coming back. He just questioned why I took the dog, jokingly. After I left, the first thing I did was get a blood pregnancy test. It was negative. That night, I also spoke to my mum. I wasn't comfortable sharing every single detail, but she told me she supports me and that I can stay with her for as long as I need. I also talked to my sisters. They admitted they never liked the idea of me dating someone so much older, but they didn't want to push me because they know me. If they had, I'd probably get angry, distance myself, and become even more dependent on him. I apologized and assured them that they should never hesitate to tell me if something feels weird or wrong. I called my boss and gave him a more family-friendly version of the story. He was absolutely livid, not only with my fiancé but also with me for not telling him sooner. He's like my work dad and was the one who requested I join him in the foreign country. He said he didn't bring me there without intending to take care of me. He promised to pull some strings to get me a position at the office in my home country. He also told me that if I wanted to get my things back, I could go back on a Saturday and he would accompany me. After thinking about it, I decided to go back. It might seem silly, but I had spent a lot of money on collectibles and didn't want to start my collection from scratch. So I spent a couple of days with friends and visiting family, realizing how lonely and isolated I felt in a foreign country. I knew I could never leave my family like that again. Even my dog seemed happier, spending every afternoon cuddling with my mum. I also visited my father's grave. I've always hated cemeteries and avoided them, but I needed him at that moment. I went alone, brought fresh flowers, cleaned a little, and just sat there talking to him. I told him none of this would have happened if he hadn't passed away. I cried a lot, then laughed like a crazy person. I ended up staying for about 3 hours, but it felt so healing. I also went to my mum's gynecologist, and she said it was possible to get a tubal ligation, especially considering my health issues. She warned me it could take about 6 months, but I was okay with the wait, so we started the process. I felt so free after that appointment, and just so much happier being home. I didn't even think about my ex until he messaged me asking about my mom. I told him she was doing better and that I'd be back on Saturday. I decided to talk to him face to face since I was already going back to collect my things. On Friday afternoon, my sister lent me her car, and I drove back to the country where my ex lived. It's almost a 12-hour drive. I went straight to my boss's house, and when I arrived, he asked me to have breakfast with him and his family. Afterward, he and his son came with me to my ex's house to help pack up my things. After getting my belongings, I went to my ex's sister's house. I needed to know if the whole baby incident had been a setup. When I arrived, she invited me in, and we sat in awkward silence for a moment until I asked her, "Did your brother ask you to make me hold the baby?" "What? No, why? What even happened that day? When I went downstairs, you weren't there, and he said you got sick and had to leave." "What did he tell you exactly?" "He said you had a panic attack because of fertility issues and holding the baby was triggering. I told him that didn't sound like you, but he said, 'How are you supposed to know more about my fiancé than I do?' Then he left." "What the actual—" "Yeah, he even said you wanted to babysit and go to the park as a couple with the baby, but I told him he was crazy if he thought I'd let him use my baby like that. He got mad at me and didn't speak to me for a couple of days." Then I laughed and explained what actually happened. She was furious, so mad she started crying. She apologized for leaving me with the baby, and I apologized for saying I was going to put the baby on the floor, clarifying that I wasn't actually going to do that. She said she was genuinely considering going low contact with him because his behavior was creepy, and she feared he might do something to the baby. I told her I was leaving her brother, and she said she understood. I went back to my boss's house to wait for my ex to get home. I was a nervous wreck. My boss's wife made me chamomile tea and stayed by my side. My boss and his son came with me to the apartment for support and safety. When my ex got home, he smiled at me, but then saw my boss and his son. He asked me what was going on. "I'm breaking up with you," I said. "You're clearly going through a baby fever phase, and I don't want any part of that." "What do you mean breaking up?" "We can't break up. We love each other." "Number you love the idea of me being pregnant with your child, and that's not going to happen." He tried to hug me, but my boss stepped in and suggested he sit down instead. "I can't lose you. I love you. You're my soulmate. I can't live without you. If you leave me, I'll die. I would rather never have kids than lose you. I'll even get a vasectomy, but please stay. What will our families think? You can't just break off the engagement like this." "First of all, this isn't a drama, so calm down. Second, I never even told my family we were engaged, and I've already told them we broke up." "What about the dog?" "You can't just take her." "What dog?" "The dog I've had since I was 17. That's my dog, and she barely tolerates you. Trust me, she's much happier with my mum." He started sobbing. My boss's son chose that moment to ask, "You really didn't tell your family?" "I just never found the right moment," I said. My ex calmed down a little and said he'd never let me go. He still loved me. I felt a little threatened when he said something like, "I'll find you and make you fall in love with me again." I told him, "Good luck with that, but seriously, enough with the drama." I gave him the ring back and he threw it at me. I said, "I hope you find someone who wants kids, but I also hope you get psychological help." And we left. I spent the night at my boss's house and the next morning went back home. I spent the rest of Sunday sleeping because I had a bit of a fever from the emotional stress. I'm helping my mum with her business now, and my therapy session is scheduled. Due to how things went at the office, I'll start again in March. I feel so happy and so light now. I forgot how much I love having my family around. I did love my fiancé, and I think I still do, but I know this was the right decision. I didn't bring two men to make fun of him while I broke up with him. I brought them because I didn't feel safe being alone with him. Looking back on this experience, I've learned how important it is to trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. I also learned that being child-free isn't something you can compromise on. Having children is a lifelong commitment that requires certainty. When someone shows you who they are and what they want, especially through their actions rather than their words, believe them. It also reminded me of the value of family and support systems. Without my boss, my mum, my sisters, and even my ex's sister, I might have been pressured into a life I never wanted. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something that looks perfect on the outside but feels wrong on the inside. Your life choices are valid, and you don't need to justify them to anyone, especially when it comes to such a personal decision as having children.